Have you ever felt it? The weight of a gaze that isn't quite there, or perhaps too present, like an unseen thread pulling taut across the quiet spaces of your life. Tonight I bring you a tale about such a gaze, a story woven into the very fabric of perception, reality, and something lingering just beyond the veil. It begins with a man named Thomas, a painter whose word was colors and canvases. Thomas had a gift. He could capture emotions, not as they appeared, but as they felt. Joy wasn't just yellow. It was a warm, trembling light. Sadness wasn't just blue. It was a heavy, drowning sea. But Thomas was haunted, you see, by a peculiar kind of loneliness. Not the solitude of silence, but the solitude of being watched. Watched intensely, but by no one she could see. Each evening, as dusk fell and shadows stretched long and thin, Thomas felt those eyes, by invisible spectators, we call them 1,000. Pair of silent observers lurking in the corners of his studio, or perhaps just beyond his vision. They never spoke or moved, yet their presence was undeniable. At first, he thought himself mad, that maybe the lines on his canvases blurred the edges of reality. But then, the impossible happened. One day, while painting a portrait of a stranger he never intended to meet, Thomas felt the gaze shift, closer, sharper, alive. The eyes belong not to people, but something else, fragments of lost thoughts, forgotten hopes, memories that refused to stay buried. These eyes watched because they had been seen by no one else. And in that moment, Thomas realized that he had become their conduit. But this wasn't a gift. It was a curse. The more Thomas painted, the more the eyes demanded. They whispered without words, weaving stories through his brushstrokes, dragging him into their in-between world, an endless twilight, where faces melted into shadows and no one ever really blinked. He saw their pain, their longing, the small tragedies that define their existence. Eyes filled with longing for love, for meaning, for release. Thomas tried to look away, to paint only what he wanted, what felt safe. But the eyes, they would not be ignored. They seeped into his dreams and his waking hours, twisting his reality until he lost the line between viewer and viewed. His paintings became windows, doorways into unbearable truths. And those who saw his work felt a strange unease, as if they were being watched through the canvas, their own secrets exposed. One stormy night, Thomas disappeared. His final painting remained, an unfinished yet mesmerizing, a swirling mass of eyes locked in eternal gaze. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones about the eerie feeling it gave, how it seemed to follow them, watching from any angle they tried to escape. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, you can still hear Thomas's voice whispering through the leaves, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. Beware the gaze you cannot see, for it carries the weight of all who have ever longed to be truly seen. And once you meet those eyes, you may never stop feeling the presence. So the next time you think you're alone, remember, somewhere, just beyond your sight, something is watching, and is waiting for you to look back. That is the story of the gaze, a tale from the twilight realm, where the seen and unseen converge, a haunting reminder that some eyes never close, and some stories never end.